An interesting piece from Anfield Watch today that I thought would be a fun one to kick us off. Clubs are queuing up, according to Anfield Watch, to sign Luis Diaz, and Liverpool could well have a bidding war on their hands. I mentioned beforehand that I wouldn't be in any rush to sell Luis Diaz, but something from John Aldridge got me thinking, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I often read John Aldridge's opinion piece that he puts in the Echo. I think it's once a week. And this one spoke a little bit about Anthony Gordon, as if he thinks that maybe Liverpool will go back in for Anthony Gordon, because the initial part was John Aldridge speaking about the fact that Anthony Gordon looks likely to miss the League Cup final because of his red card. And I wanted to tie it both in, because we've definitely seen an increase in stories around Liverpool potentially listening to offers for Diaz. But I'd be surprised if we went back in for Anthony Gordon. So I wanted to kind of gauge your thoughts on it. Do you think the Reds may revisit Anthony Gordon? Surely Newcastle wouldn't want to sell Gordon and Isak in one window. That would be a huge amount of upheaval. And of course, we've seen Anthony Gordon sign a new deal with Newcastle. So I was a little bit surprised to see that in John Aldridge's piece. But, you know, he's far better connected to the club than I am. And I don't know if he's speaking out of optimism, or if he's speaking because maybe he thinks that there's still some business to be done there. It's an interesting one, and I wouldn't be against it if that was the trade-off. I wouldn't actively want to sell Diaz, but if you look at the age profile, you can think, alright, you can see a world where maybe Liverpool think if you're going to cash in on Diaz at any point, now's the right time to do it, and you probably still get a rather hefty fee for him. But I think most of us love Lucho and think that he's a great part of our squad, but we've always got an inkling or an idea that he's itchy feet and maybe he wants a move. We've seen links to Barcelona in the past, and this Anfield Watch story saying that Liverpool could have a bidding war on their hands for Luis Diaz and the clubs are queuing up for his services. That would be an interesting turn of events. Diaz criticism is unfair. I don't see the criticism, Muckrab. So again, can we stop cry arson? Every time somebody says anything in any way possible about a player, there's always somebody whinging in the comments about the criticism. I haven't criticised them once. Not one single syllable of criticism has come out of my mouth. But we can't ignore the likelihood that he may get sold. You know, whatever you think and I think, it is what it is. So we're going to have to just roll with the punches. I've actively said I wouldn't sell him. But if we're looking to sell him to bring in somebody different, well then, you know, that's up to the club and the manager, but we got to talk about it, right? We can't just bury our heads in the sand. And I get it. Look, I'm never going to be a happy clapper who just thinks everything is brilliant and agrees with everything. That's just not the way I'm wired. But I'm trying to be balanced in how I'm covering this, because I didn't write the pieces, you didn't write the pieces, but people are going to have their opinions and they might not align with yours, so we've got to just take that one on the chin. So in the world where we accept that Luis Diaz may be moved on, and let me say, I think it can be dangerous if we do all these bits of business that have been linked. Like, I don't want us to see a summer where we sell Diaz, Darwin and Jota. That's too much in one window for the forward department. So I think a far more sensible ply would be to bring in a centre forward and maybe replace Diaz if he wants to move. But I wouldn't be looking to move him on. Right, so I want to just ask, do you think Gordon to Liverpool is possible? Yes or no, for the first poll of the night. Sorry, there's a hair. I know, ironic, but there's a hair on my keyboard. Oh, yeah, something easy on the keyboard. I'm one of those one finger typists, mate, definitely. Isak and Gordon would allow 3 forward sales, said George Davidson. Yeah, so when we're talking about the forward situation, at least at the back of my mind, I'm thinking about Jayden Danns as an option here, as somebody who, if we did move players on, may come in to take up one of those attacking spots. So I kind of don't disagree with what you've said about those two guys would maybe free up 3 spots in general. I certainly had put it out of my mind, the whole idea about Anthony Gordon, until I started to see a few more things. Like the Echo have been doing a couple of pieces where they keep mentioning Gordon, and then John Aldridge again today, and even in the commentary world, when you're watching games, you often see it keep coming back up. And we know that Anthony Gordon's a Liverpool fan, and we know that Anthony Gordon is open to it, because, you know, there was lots of talk when he was away with England that he was up for that move. Newcastle won't give up Gordon and Isak, no way. Gino, I agree. I mean, if I was a Newcastle fan and I read that was possible, I'd lose my mind. So, mate, I'm not saying that these are likely, which is why I'm asking. For instance, I don't think it's worth spending the money that's been mentioned for Isak. I just don't think he's worth £150 million or anything close to it. For me, as I said last night, I'd be doing business at 100 million max. I just don't think Gordon is as good as Luis Diaz. Well, I don't think he is either. But he isn't as old as Luis Diaz. And I think that's an important aspect here. Whilst what you've said is a fair statement, and if you're saying to me who's a better player, I'm saying Luis Diaz. But Anthony Gordon's still 5 or 6 years younger. Or maybe, 5 years I think younger than Luis Diaz. So that's 5 years worth of experience. He's going to pick up. So I think if you say who has a higher ceiling, I'd probably say Anthony Gordon. I think by the end of Gordon's career, he'll have become a better player than Luis Diaz is now. But again, that's just my opinion. Why is Diaz being assumed to be moving on? I'm just curious. It's been reported quite a bit. I certainly didn't expect it to be written about as much as it has been, but there's been lots of stories over the last few days about it, and the one that kind of piqued our interest today was an Anfield Watch article that said clubs are queuing up to sign Luis Diaz and Liverpool could well have a bidding war on their hands. And that kind of made me think, well, there must be something to it. You know, we've all heard the Barcelona stuff and, you know, we know about that interest, but I find this one tough because, you know, he's on small money compared to the other forwards. So he deserves a pay rise. But Liverpool, it looks like, don't want to put a serious offer to him because the offers that are believed to have been put to him haven't been accepted. So, you know, maybe Liverpool just feel like with Cody Gakpo there and a younger age profile, maybe he suits Arne's system a little better. And maybe Arne feels like we could bring in a younger, hungrier midfielder there if the right move comes for Lucho. It's a tough one because certainly, you know, I don't know a Liverpool fan that doesn't think Luis Diaz is a good player. So I don't think anybody is rushing him out the door, but we also just can't ignore the constant churning of stories linking what moves away, even sometimes from the English-based journalists. Adam said, I think all deals combined this summer could be the biggest we've ever had if the players in the positions we need are bought. I agree, but the key question here for me, Adam, is what will the net spend be at the end of the summer? Like, it's not... if we have a good summer, we have a good summer. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, we filled all the positions, but I wanted us to have had a bigger net. It's interesting, though, because I think about 90 million is their biggest net spend window so far, which is the Szoboszlai, Gravenberch window. So let's see what the net spend is. But if we can do all the business we need to do for a reasonable number with some outgoings, I'm not against that at all either.